Before we discuss your answers to this, let's remind ourselves of the goal. So yesterday, we only had a little bit of time to kind of just talk about how the slides are set up and the goal and everything. So if you ever need a reminder of the goal, it is on the back whiteboard, but it's to work together to collect data and explore statistical questions. How you know that you're successful in doing that is if you can do the learning targets. So tell statistical questions from non-statistical questions and tell the difference between numerical and categorical data by the end of the lesson. So to kind of warm us up, this was the activity. First, I'm just going to start with like a poll. So raise your hand if you thought A did not belong. Raise your hand if you thought B did not belong. And then keep it up so I can count. Okay. Raise your hand if you thought C did not belong. Okay, keep them up because I need to count. Okay, I counted 23, give or take. And then raise your hand if you thought D did not belong. Okay, so everyone seems to think that D belongs or they're just too shy. So good level of participation. I like it. A lot of the time when I take a poll, some people just don't participate. Usually there's no like risk right now. So participating right now is good. In my other classes, they all chose C. Nobody wanted to raise their hand for the others. And I feel like it's just because of like majority rules. But what if I told you that there is no wrong answer for this one? All right. There are reasons that every single one does not belong. So someone give me a reason why A does not belong. Brooklyn? Because it says okay, good. I didn't notice that earlier. So maybe that's what that person was talking about. They didn't specify. This one is asking about specifically potato chips. And none of the others do. Okay, so that could be why it doesn't belong. As simple as that. Someone tell me why B does not belong. Right, 7 of you said it. Why do we think B does not belong? Or even if you don't think so, come up with something. Yes?
Because it's a number of chips in the bag of chips.
Okay. So typical number. What's another word for like the word typical? Yes? Average. Good. So if you remember when I was talking about it yesterday, this unit is going to be about one variable statistics. So an average or typical amount would be a statistic. So yeah, this one is the only one that says typical. And yeah, good. What type of answer would we expect from that one? So if I asked you what's the typical number of chips, what would you say? Give me an example. But I have multiple different answers. Okay, so give me an example of an answer. What's usually the number of chips in a bag of chips? Estimate. I think what I'm asking is hard. No, would you say that there's like 10 chips usually in the bag of chips?
I thought it said on the type of chips then.
Okay, maybe it depends on the type of chips.
All I asked for was an example of an answer.
So like, what are some examples of answers to this question? 24, 10. Other examples. 3 maybe. Do any of these others give me that type of answer, numerical answers. It's not the only one that gives numerical answers. Like this one technically could also be a numerical answer, but we'll include that too for question B. All right, what about question C? Why does that one not belong? Yes. So it's the only one with no numbers. Is it the only one with no numbers? Could the answer to D also be numbers? Okay, what type of chips do students in this class prefer? Do you tell me a number for that? But would they tell me, like if I said, Brooklyn, what type of chips do you prefer? What would you tell me? Doritos, is that a number? So no, you wouldn't tell me a number for that question. So C and D both don't have numerical data. What type of data do they have? Opposite of numerical. So a word, all right, or in other words, a category. Now, so we could say that this is categorical. We could also say that D is categorical, but what's the difference between the two? So what type of chips are these? How many different answers should I expect for that? One. So categorical and only one answer. That's why C is different. Should I expect a variety of answers from question D? What type of chips do you prefer? So yes, multiple answers. So that's what differentiates these. Questions on that? All right, you didn't have to write anything down, but you do have a note sheet in front of you. This is just a warm-up. So moving on, and we did introduce some of our vocabulary without being formally introduced to it. But moving on to the first activity. At your tables, whether it's in the basket or just on top of the whiteboard, there should be a slip of paper. So find that slip of paper. Don't do anything with it yet. You guys see it on the whiteboard, please. Does anyone have two slips of paper by chance? Okay. All right, so each group should have a slip of paper with different questions on it. What you will do is essentially you're going to collect data from your classmates, but in order to do that, you need to write them as survey questions. And plus, if you notice on your paper, you have 4 spots for questions. The question 4 can be whatever question you want to ask, up to you. But the first 3 should be based on the slip of paper that you have. So say one of the things you're trying to figure out is the type of pets that your classmates have. I don't know if that's on your slip, but just say it is. Or maybe not type. Maybe let's do how many pets do your classmates have. Would I go up to someone and say the number of pets that my classmates have and expect an answer? How would I phrase that question when I'm asking someone? Yes? How many pets do you have? So then that's what you're doing for question 1, 2, and 3 is either revising them or checking to see if they're good to ask your classmates. So how many pets do you have? And then you're filling it into your table, but do it based off of your 3 questions. Question 4 can be whatever you want. So I'll give you 2 minutes to figure out what your questions are before I have you get up and ask your classmates. Yeah? Don't write mine, because I don't think anyone has that for question 1. Write it based on your questions. You all should have a slip on your table. Yeah, I know. The 4th one can be whatever you want. 4th question can be whatever you want. You have 3 questions that you need to make the survey question out of. All right, so you just surveyed all of your classmates with the 4 questions. 3 of them you had to make a survey question out of, and then the 4th one was whatever question you wanted to ask. So give me some question 4s that you heard that were either interesting or maybe that you asked your classmates. What are some interesting question 4s that we heard? Yes. Okay, what is your bedtime? I'll like summarize it so that I don't write all that. All right, what's your bedtime? All right, what's another interesting question that you heard or asked? Yes? How many people in the school? How many people in the school? And then did your answers have to always, or did your question have to always have a numerical answer? It could be whatever question you want, is what I told you. So give me an example of a question that wouldn't have a numerical answer. Yes? Sorry, what was that? Okay, lightest element. All right, that might not be your question 4, but it's fine. It'll work for this purpose. So we'll come back to these question 4s. If you flip your paper over, you'll see some of these questions and you'll answer them on the back of your paper. So you already did the first 2 because, you know, you already surveyed your questions. These ones are printed on your paper. It might just say like 1, 2, 3, 4. So look at your data that you had for each of your questions and like kind of summarize it in a sentence. So like you could say for number 1, all my answers were about the same number or something along those lines. Basically just look at your data and summarize your responses for like the 1, 2, 3, 4. Then in your groups, you will decide what each question has in common. So like for question 1, what did your responses for that number 1 question have in common? Then you'll do that for question 2. Look at your responses, see what they have in common. And then you'll do that for 3. All right, so any questions? Really, you're just doing the first 2 that are on the back of your paper right now. All right, so look at your data with your group. Find some common things about those responses. Write them in like a really short sentence for 1, 2, and 3. Now, each group had a different set of questions. There were 4 possible sets of questions. And you can see them on the screen here, but we'll look at them individually. So here are the number 1s for each of the possible sets. So on average, how many letters are in the last name for students in this class? On average, what's the furthest in miles that each student in this class has ever been from home? About how long did it take students in this class to get to school this morning? And on average, how many movies in the theater did each student in the class watch this summer? So you didn't know what everyone else's number 1 was, but now I'm showing you. What would all these questions have in common for the type of answers you would get from them? Yes? So all answers are numerical. All right, so for example, what was like a typical answer for the letters in someone's last name? Sorry, what was that? 7, 8, something close to that, right? Doesn't have to be 7 or 8 exactly, but something close to that. If you ask someone how many letters are in your last name and they told you Medina, would that be like an answer that makes sense? It would not make sense. But so these would have numerical answers. All of them would. Questions on that? All right. So for your number 1, when you were looking at like what that had in common, it should be something to the effect of all the answers are numerical. You could even get more specifics, like they're all around these numbers. For this one, what's the furthest in miles each student in this class has ever been from home? Probably had to estimate. What's like a typical answer you guys got for that one? 1,000. All right, what's the farthest approximately that you've been from home? Okay, just a random 1,000. Someone give me a different number, please. 700. So bigger numbers, still all around like the same kind of answer. So yes, for all of our question 1s, they all should be numerical answers. If they're not, then they can be answered wrong. Now here's all of our question 2s. So which month has the most birthdays from the class? Would the class rather have a snow day or field trip day? Which combination does this class prefer? Peanut butter and banana or strawberry and banana? And does the class prefer to write on paper with or without lines? So what would these responses all be or have in common? All right, table 7. Can you tell me like something about these responses? Right with me. Something you guys should have already done in your groups. Should have looked at your number 2 responses, no matter which number 2 you had, and said something about their responses. All right. You'll phone a friend, I'll allow it this time. Table 6.
Like something that they prefer.
Okay, something that they prefer for some of them, but what about that they all have in common? They have categorical responses. All data, all responses are categorical. Even if you only had a choice between like with or without lines, that's still 2 categories, right? With lines or without lines. So that's categorical data. That makes sense? What I'm asking for when I'm asking what the common thing can all be. So if I asked you what month is your birthday and you told me the 19th, does that make sense? Yes, no. Is the 19th a month? No. So that's where like someone could say something that is numerical, but it doesn't make sense. Your answer should be categorical for all of these. All right, now look at everyone's number 3 on the screen. We have how many periods or blocks have there been before this math class? In what year was the 13th Amendment ratified? What's the lightest element in the periodic table? And how many seats are in the classroom? What do all of these question 3s have in common? Now that you know what everyone's question 3 was. Table 8. Ron?
They're all like one specific answer.
Oh, so that's good. They all have one specific answer or one correct answer. Because you could say an answer that is different than what someone else said, but there should only be one correct answer. So like how many periods or blocks were there before this math class? 2, because we're in third hour. If someone said something different, then either they forgot or something, but there were 2 classes before this class. What about, what year was the 13th Amendment ratified? Does someone have to look it up? Yes? I don't think that was it. Unless I'm wrong. But when I looked it up earlier, I got a different answer. Because I had to look it up too. I don't know that off the top of my head. Did say you could Google it. All right, so anyone else look it up? What year was the 13th Amendment ratified? What year was the 13th Amendment ratified? Okay, so mine says 1865. All right, now, did some of you probably guess and your person wrote it down? Probably, but is there multiple years that the 13th Amendment was ratified? So there's only one actual correct answer for that. What about the lightest element from the periodic table? It's hydrogen. If you said a different one, and I know you haven't taken chemistry yet, if you already knew that, good job. There's only one right answer. There's only one element that is the lightest. And then for how many seats are in this classroom? What did some of your classmates say? Okay, some said 35. Anyone say anything different when you were taking your survey? Yes? 33. Someone said 33. Now those are different answers. There's only one real answer though. So I can tell you there's 37 desks, but then when you count like my chair, all the other extra chairs I have, there's more. But if we go with just desks, there's really only one correct answer, and that's one specific number. So are all of these answers numbers? No, we have one that's categorical. But since they all just have one correct answer, this is an example of a non-statistical question. So if there's only one possible answer, then this is what we call non-statistical. So when you talk about number 3, but that this is non-statistical, because they have just one correct answer. All right, that's one of the vocab words that you need to know. What makes something non-statistical. So then is number 2, and I'm going to go back to it right now. And maybe we'll start at number 1, because I know that'll be up first. Is this one a statistical question? Could I have multiple different answers? How many letters are in your last name, or is there only one right answer? So this would be an example of a statistical question. All of our number 1s are. All right, about how long did it take you to get ready this morning? We expect like a range of answers. So these are all statistical, our number 1. Statistical with numerical data. Now, number 2, are these statistical questions? In what month is your birthday? Do you prefer peanut butter and banana or strawberry and banana? Would I expect like a range of answers? Or all just one correct answer? A range of answers. So all your number 2s are statistical. Statistical. Maybe make a note of that. Number 1 is statistical. Number 2 is statistical. Number 3 is non-statistical. So then you all had a question for decide what category it best falls into. What other question is like your question 4? Is it statistical categorical? Is it statistical numerical? Or is it a non-statistical question? So determine that with your group. Your question 4, classify it. I'm gonna go back to our question 4s that we had earlier. Okay, so all of your question 4s were different. If you really want to know if you answered that right for what type it is, you can ask me and I'll tell you. But if I asked you, what is your bedtime? Is that a statistical question? Yes, because we all don't go to bed at the same time. Maybe some of us do. We should expect a range of answers. What type of data would we get? Numerical or categorical? I don't really know people's names. Dinah, what's your bedtime? What time did you go to bed last night? Okay, 11. Number or category? So then numerical data. Come on, guys. But yeah, so how do you tell? What about how many people are in this school? That would be also numerical. Is it a statistical question or is it non-statistical? Is there a range of answers that could be right, or is there only one possible answer that is right? Yes? So then this one is non-statistical. It does give a number, but it's a non-statistical question. All right, and the last one, which was like one of your number 3, is asking what the lightest element is, statistical or non-statistical. I should see way more than just one hand up. Here's one of the ones we talked about. So if I ask you, what's the lightest element? Is that statistical or non-statistical? Okay, good. Now listen, don't pack up because you still have plenty of time. Like there's nowhere you need to rush to or anything. You need to listen or else you're not going to do your homework or something like that. These papers, you need to save. Whether it's in a binder, folder, whatever, I prefer a binder. Don't move yet. Everyone wait. Everyone wait. You need to save it. At the end of the unit, I will do a binder check and you will get points for it. And it will go in the project category. Stop moving. So don't lose it. And don't throw things away. I know I let you throw away your bingo sheet. We're not there anymore. So don't throw things away. Your assignment, which I always talk about in the slides, or you could always find it in the slides if you're ever confused, is a puzzle piece in Schoology. It's literally 3 questions. You can get it done right now in these last like 4 minutes that we have, and then you won't have homework. Regardless, you need to make sure that you do it so that you're ready for the quiz, which is on Monday. Questions, comments, concerns? Yeah.